Welcome back. I'm Brent Narrative. Even as we approach marriage equality in the United States from a fairness and legality standpoint, the debate between it and religion seems one likely to wage on much longer. Here with me tonight to offer his insights and his church's stance is the Reverend Rick Britton from St. Anne's Episcopal Church right here in Nashville. Welcome back, Rick. It's good to see you again.
It's good to be back.
Thank you. And when you were here last, which was back in 2012, does not seem that long ago, we discussed a new service within your church for same-sex couples. It was called the Witnessing and Blessing of a Lifelong Covenant. Now, a lot has changed since then, but how has that service and the views toward it changed or evolved with your church?
It's evolved very well. There are a lot more priests throughout the church who are being permitted by their bishops to do that service. And so it's really great to see. But in addition to that, we are seeing more and more of our diocese permitting not just the blessing, but actual marriages.
Actual marriage.
Yeah,
okay,
it's wonderful.
Great.
You know, there are 37 states now that recognize a same-sex marriage. And there are at least 15 of our dioceses within those states where the bishops are allowing their clergy to perform same-sex marriages. Even in my own congregation, we have five members of our parish who have gone out of state and gotten legally married.
Well, that is good news. I know when we talked last, I know that was part of the concern, was that even though it was allowed within the church, there were some areas where, as you said, the bishops were not necessarily allowing it, or it wasn't encouraged. And it's great to hear that change in 3 years.
It's really moving It's moving very, very quickly. And then since you and I talked last, we also are getting ready to have what's called our General Convention in this coming June. And there's a study on marriage in the Episcopal Church. And in that, there is a lot of information, a lot of study that people are looking over and sharing. And they're encouraging priests and lay people to study the whole idea of marriage, with the idea of opening up the understanding of marriage between same-sex couples. And it's not so much a legal issue as it is pastoral there. Which we're
and I'm glad to hear that is the encouragement, the study of it, and just the thought of it in a sense, in that, you know, instead of making a snap judgment or being sort of told how to think, it's forcing people to stop and think for themselves in a way, and to sort of humanize it, I think, right?
Exactly. And also, I think it gives some clergy and lay people who have reservations about the blessing of same-sex marriages, it gives them a chance to really reflect and think and be in dialogue with others. And so I think it helps people on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, certainly.
And that's one of the strengths, I think, of the Episcopal Church is dialogue, and I think that addresses the whole pastoral issue.
Yeah, certainly. Now, several churches have recently changed their stance here within this area on LGBT membership and what that means. One of them is right here in Franklin, Tennessee. It garnered a lot of national attention when their pastor essentially said, we're not going to ask our LGBT members to be celibate any longer. We want them to be full members of the church. How does your church feel towards sort of those stances or those announcements, and sort of what is your current stance with your LGBT members?
Oh, great. Well, in terms of St. Anne's Episcopal Church here, wonderful. We are just so happy about what that congregation decided. We're talking about the full and sacramental inclusion of our Christian brothers and sisters who happen to be LGBTQ. And so we think it's wonderful.
Good.
Even within our congregation, we're seeking ways to get more people involved in the dialogue, to network with other not only congregations but denominations in terms of how we can support our GLBTQ Christian brothers and sisters in terms of life and the mission of the church. So we think it's great. Now, when you go nationally, it's a little different.
It is a little different.
You go nationally, and it varies from state to state, from diocese to diocese. But the thing about it is, Brett, is that we're talking about it, and that's what is so important. That's what I'm so proud of. But as far as that congregation in Franklin, we really are happy that those folks have come to that decision.
Fantastic. And I was happy too. I mean, I had a long talk with the pastor there. We had a wonderful discussion, and he said he'd been working with and sort of talking with his congregation for years. It wasn't something that he just said, you know, we're going to do this without consulting with his congregation, and sort of bringing them into the fold and getting them to understand it. Again, thinking, talking, discussing it, not just telling them what they're going to do. Now, we're taping this, speaking of marriage, just before the oral arguments that are happening in front of the Supreme Court concerning marriage equality. You know, we talked a lot about it last week in the show with Chris Sanders was here. What is sort of your sense of the outcome and how it will fare here in Tennessee?
Brent, who knows? Who knows what will happen?
On the spot a little bit there.
Who knows what will happen? The Affordable Care Act, all the way to to marriage equality. Who knows how the Supreme Court is going to go on this one? I really don't know. I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful. I think I'm more optimistic than I have been in the past. And I know our Episcopal Church, we're going to gather right after the Supreme Court decision, and I'm sure it will affect some of our legislation depending on what they will do. But I have to admit, I'm I'm optimistic.
I'm pretty optimistic too.
I'm glad
to
really
hear that.
am.
Now, what can the LGBT community do to help close sort of this gap that often exists between religion and our community? I mean, you guys are sort of reaching out halfway. A lot of our community are, but there's still those who kind of stand on each end and say, are they just rooted in? Do they just need this dialogue? What else can we do to sort of reach back out?
That's a good question, and it's very hard. It's such a personal, sensitive issue, but I do believe that it's a matter of being able and being willing to come together and just to talk, to listen and to respect, and not to pass judgment. But you've got to take that first step. And just like that pastor down in Franklin, who really worked with his people and brought his people along, I think that's what has to be done by us religious leaders. And the laity also feel a certain way that we really need to try and to see what we can do, because change is coming. And we're talking about making life better for all of us, and not just for some of us.
Certainly.
So yeah.
Now, if someone is looking for a new church home, after that, if I may follow up that question with that, and is interested in visiting St. Anne's, how might they find out more, or what can they do? Should they just show up? Should they check you out online? What can they do?
You know the old line. Go to our website. www.santannesnashville.org.
Okay.
And of course you can Google us. Our services are 8:30 and 10:30 on Sunday mornings.
Sure.
And we are a small church, an inclusive church, but we like to think that we are welcoming, and that's one of the gifts of the Spirit. But we take pride in opening the church to all people. We are first Christians, and then comes the rest.
So you don't make anybody stand up with their visitor name tag on and introduce themselves?
We do greet them. We don't make them do that or have to recite the 10 Commandments. But we do want folks to feel welcome.
Well, Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope to see you soon. Thanks a lot.
It's good to be back.
Take care. And stay tuned. When we come back, Pam will be joined by activist and author Lorraine Chivalry. Stay with us.